Canada is embarking on the largest defence procurement in its history. After announcing Monday it has selected Germany's TKMS as the preferred bidder to build a new fleet of up to 12 submarines. That decision passed over a rival bid from South Korea's Hanwha Ocean, and it's expected to shape the Royal Canadian Navy for decades to come. For more on the decision, I'm joined by Stephen Fuhr, Secretary of State for Defence Procurement. Mr. Fuhr, thanks very much for being here. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on the program.
So Prime Minister Carney said yesterday that this was a difficult, close decision between two highly qualified suppliers, but he also said plainly last month that both submarines actually met the operational requirements of the Canadian Forces and that ultimately the decision would come down to the broader benefits that were on offer. So what ultimately set TKMS apart and made it the preferred bidder?
Well, let's just start with the first part of what you said, because I think it's important. Both companies had very, very strong bids. All three countries, because let's not forget that the TKMS offer is backed by both Germany and Norway. So Norway is often forgotten in that conversation, and the South Korea, obviously with Hanwha. So two good companies, three strong allies for Canada, and as the Prime Minister said, it was very, very close. It would be inappropriate for me at this point to get into the weeds with regard to what in particular set it over the edge in terms of why we chose one over the other, especially when we're going into contract negotiations with the preferred supplier. I would point out that Hanwha is the reserve supplier, which is an unusual way for us to proceed. We don't typically do things this way, but it's one of the new ways that we're approaching defense procurement. The preferred supplier, there's lots of things to work out. Many of the offerings were memorandums of understanding. I mean, those have to be worked into contracts, which they will over time. But again, the important piece here that we're moving forward with a real upgrade in capability for the Canadian Navy, and we will do the very best we can to achieve the best economic value package for Canadians that we can.
Okay, well, selecting a preferred bidder obviously is just one step. As you said, the contract negotiations now have to take place, and that's expected to take, I understand, between 6 and 18 months. What are the biggest issues that still need to be resolved before a final deal is signed? What are you looking to get from that contract?
Well, like I said, we want to turn MOUs into contracts. If you were to go into the public space, you will have seen, I mean, obviously when Canadian companies were being courted or talking to these primes, submarine prime contractors, they were putting out MOUs into the public space. So obviously turning those into contracts. The number of submarines, we haven't settled on a number yet, up to 12, but that will drive a lot of the benefit package. Obviously, 12 would represent a bigger number, regardless of what the number is, than a smaller number of submarines. So we have to work that out. On the timeline, you mentioned 6 to 18 months. I'm more bullish on the time frame. I think we can do it. I think we can move quicker, so closer to the lower estimate than the higher. And we have been moving quick across a wide range of procurements. This is very important for us. I want to get shovels in the ground for infrastructure to make sure that the infrastructure is in place for when the submarines arrive. It is also an excellent opportunity to put Canadians to work with job opportunities, stimulate our steel, aluminum, softwood lumber, all the materials that we're going to need to build these facilities, and those particular sectors are getting still hurt pretty significantly by the U.S. tariffs. So we want to move quickly. We want to get infrastructure in the ground, and the Defense Investment Agency, the team, will work with the Germans and the Norwegians to put together the best fiscal package that will come with the delivery of the capability sooner rather than later.
I just want to pick up on something you said there, because you did say up to 12, and obviously initially we were looking at 12, and there was a lot made of that number because of what it would mean operationally. Can you give us a sense, and I understand that some of it might be dependent ultimately on contract negotiations and cost and whatnot, but if not 12, then is there a floor for the number of subs that Canada is now looking to acquire through this contract?
I wouldn't necessarily look at it as a floor. There's a number of things that need to be considered, and I can share with you what those are. Obviously, cost is one of the things. It's not exclusively cost. We have a good idea of the ballpark. Obviously, that number will be refined as we move forward in contract negotiations, but cost always will be an issue or a factor in the decision. Technology will be a factor. Right now, there is some pretty advanced underwater submersible technologies that are out there. Nothing really at this point meets what a submarine can do in terms of lethality, persistence. There's a whole host of things. So submarines are very important, and we'll continue to move forward with a sub. All world-class, first-class militaries have a submarine capability, but there are emerging technologies that are very interesting and important to Canada. We want to have a broad range of tools in our tactical toolbox, so that will be a factor, because these subs will take years to come and technology's advancing very quickly. So there's a number of things that will determine the final number, and we'll get there as we move forward.
Okay, so not necessarily a floor then, but regardless, Canada will now have, at some point, new submarines. It will still need, obviously, to crew them. And with only one occasionally operational submarine right now, Canadian sailors have had, obviously, limited opportunities to gain that kind of experience. So how will your government support the Navy to recruit, train, and retain all the people that will be needed to operate and to maintain this new fleet?
Well, you bring up a good point, because the human HR is a big factor. The good news is from what I'm hearing, this is more of a defense Minister McGuinty's file, but I mean, we sit at the same table, so I'm familiar with the effort. Recruiting's up, and I'm not surprised. I spent 20 years in the Air Force. It was a very, very good to me, and I look back at my time in the military fondly. Pay is up, benefits are up. We're recapitalizing pretty much everything, and I think that's a very good reason why we're seeing our recruitment numbers up across all, across the board. So the Navy will obviously going from 4 subs to potentially tripling the fleet. They will need more people, but they've got some time, and the numbers we're seeing, for the reasons I just mentioned, in terms of pay, benefits, people want to come and serve the country, which is great. We've got some time to get there, and the early numbers are encouraging. We'll get there.
The Prime Minister said today that his government made the right decision for Canada in choosing TKMS, and the right decision for NATO. How did NATO factor into this decision, and how do you respond to critics who say that the government just placed too much weight on transatlantic considerations?
Well, I would say more broadly that NATO is part of the conversation for sure, but let's not forget we had 2 qualified suppliers. So the Korean option would have met the mail in terms of being able to work with NATO. I mean, these machines would have done the job. So otherwise, I wouldn't have been a preferred supplier. It went from preferred supplier to reserve supplier. That's true. But we would have been able to make that option had it been shown as the qualified supplier, make it work. Both subs met, like we said from the beginning, both subs met the military's high-level mandatory requirements. So that would mean that it would have worked with NATO. This particular submarine comes from NATO nations. That's true. But the other one would have done the job just as well.
As you said, this wasn't just a contest between 2 shipbuilders, really. It was a fierce competition between 2 close allies, Germany and South Korea, both of whom are looking to deepen their defense ties with Canada, and Canada is looking to do the same. So how do you ensure that this decision won't come at the expense of Canada's growing relationship with South Korea?
Well, I guess time will tell. I'm very certain that this was disappointing for the South Koreans, but they're a very good ally of Canada. That won't change. And there's many places we can work with the South Koreans across a wide range of things. We're recapitalizing our entire military, and the South Koreans build good equipment, so there's probably opportunities there, and we'll talk about those moving forward. Military procurement's also starting to open other economic opportunities for countries, the middle powers, as we come together to occupy the space that is being vacated by the U.S. as they step back. Energy, critical minerals, space. There's all sorts of places agriculture that we could work with the South Koreans. And as much as I'm very sure this was a disappointing outcome for them, we value them immensely, and we will continue to look for ways that we can work together with the South Koreans.
I'll just end on this, and I can't let you go, of course, without asking you about another major defense procurement, and that's, of course, the move to replace the aging fleet of CF-18s. Canada, of course, committed to buying the F-35. That decision has now been under review for nearly a year and a half. Yesterday, you said, and I'll quote you here, when the government's comfortable to make a decision on the fighter jet purchase, they'll let Canadians know. What's causing the discomfort at this moment?
Well, I think it's important that we get the decision right. That's first and foremost. We have committed to buying the F-35. That has not changed. The question really that's being discussed or debated is what that looks like going forward. Do we get the full complement? Do we split the fleet? There's many directions the government could go. And we're not quite ready to make that decision yet. We're making lots of other decisions, and we haven't slowed anything down. As I said yesterday, it sounds like you reviewed what I had to say. We're under contract for 16 airplanes, F-35s right now with Lockheed Martin. We've purchased long lead items for 14 more airplanes, and when the government is ready to announce its direction, it will do so. I will point out, yesterday or early this morning, I'd have to get the timeline sorted out. NATO announced that it has down selected Saab GlobalEye as its aircraft of choice for AEWC, which is fantastic news for NATO, I think, and it's also great news for Canada. Those aircraft, Bombardier Global 6500s, are built here in Toronto, so this is great news for our aerospace. Canadian aerospace moving forward, and obviously Canada's negotiating with them as a preferred supplier for our own indigenous AEWC capability moving forward. So another great place for Canada to be right now.
Right, that is that surveillance aircraft. And I'll just, if you'll allow me, I'll sneak in one last question, because you did raise the prospect there of a mixed fleet, and there has been some reporting that Canada could pursue a mixed fighter fleet with both Lockheed Martin's F-35 and the Saab Gripen, and that might entail a fleet of more than 100 jets. Is that still being considered, or has a decision been made on that front?
Well, no, I mean, back to your original point, we haven't made a decision. I mean, the obvious decisions out there is, do we stay the course with the original plan? Do we split the fleet? I mean, that's really the decision point here. We have committed to buying a certain number of F-35s. And really the decision point is, do we continue forward on the original path we were on, or do we modify the path given a whole host of factors that have presented themselves in the last 18 months? And the government will let Canadians know when we're ready to make the decision.
Okay, Stephen Fuhr, Secretary of State for Defence Procurement. We'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.